Not today is a phrase that law enforcement borrowed from the military. Talk a little bit more about it, maybe today, maybe at a future session. But what it really means is I'm not going to allow these bad things to happen today, to me, to my family. I'm not going to allow somebody to take me away from my family. You see it all across social, political spectrums. Not today. Unfortunately for these people, it did happen to them that day. Two dudes walk into a fast food place, shoot both these guys, owner, longtime employee. Presumably a robbery, but nobody really knows for sure. Long-term employee in Aurora, Illinois, disgruntled, walks in, kills 5 people, wounds several more. Recent event. A service recipient in Maryland was unhappy the way that the newspaper treated him, walked in with a shotgun, killed these wonderful people, injured several more. Chicago, Illinois, domestic violence, a huge part of workplace violence. Domestic partner suckered one of those young ladies out to the parking lot, shot her right in the face after she broke off their engagement. And if that wasn't enough, then he walked into the building, into her work environment where she worked as an emergency room physician, killed a couple more people. Those are the situations that we're hoping to avoid today. There's 4 different types. No relation to business. Robbery, terrorism, relatively rare. Current or former employee, 2/3. 2/3 of incidents are current or former employees. And of course, domestic relationship with one of the employees. That's why we're here today, those 2 situations. And the good news is, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to go shoot my workplace up. There's a progression. And because there's a progression, and if you know that progression, you can do something about it. All of you are on the front lines to stopping those tragic events. There's commonalities in all of those people. And forgive me for my use of Yoda here, the Jedi Master. He's kind of got this stuff figured out. They were all isolated. They all expressed fear and anxiety. They became resentful. Resentfulness led to anger. Anger led to hate. And hate leads to violence, the dark side. There's severities. There's the top of the line where somebody's coming in with homicidal intentions. Moderate. And then the minor stuff. And if we can cut this off at the minor stuff that happens every day in the workplace, then we can deal with the major stuff. Minor workplace violence. And now it's important to realize that OSHA is getting 2 million reports a year of workplace violence. 2 million. I can't even calculate how many that is a day. It's a lot. Most of them, the vast, vast majority, are minor incidents. Todd, that's a nice shirt.
Thank you, officer.
Now right away, Todd is thinking, nice haircut, dude. But he handled it well, didn't he? It's a minor transgression. And for God's sakes, nobody's saying that Todd needs to run to HR and report Nick because he said I had a nice shirt. Because he walks in, first they're going to say is he said he had a nice shirt. I don't agree with him, but I kind of, you know. But Todd's thinking, what's wrong with my shirt? And I'm thinking, what's wrong with my haircut? Well, I know what's wrong with my haircut, but that's okay. She was new. I still gave her a tip. She was nice. Those kind of little micro-transgressions happen every day. And honestly, nobody's worried about those, especially Todd and I have known each other for 13 years. It's not a big deal. I'm not the fun police. and neither is Matt, although he volunteered to be the fun police. Right? Poor Matt's looking at me like, I didn't volunteer for that, nope. Those kinds of communications are okay. Can they be considered aggressive? Yep. For the last 13 years, every day when Todd walks in, I pick on him. Nice shoes, nice shirt. Oh, running a little bit late today. Didn't like the way you rolled up, you unspooled that thing yesterday. The constant jabs every day. Eventually that's going to wear on him. And what I might think is an appropriate little bit of a humor, poor Todd, grates on him day after day after day. And then he starts going down the path to the dark side. And then he not only finds fault in something I say, but something Matt says or Joe says. And pretty soon he's feeling isolated, resentful and anger and hatred. He's completely disconnected from any social support system in work, at home. And then the thoughts start intruding like, I'm going to get back at those guys. And he feels a great injustice, all because he wore an ugly shirt. Moderate. Now these are where a single event will get you in trouble. A single event will start to generate a history of policy violations, days off, conflict with your coworkers, sometimes involvement with the police if you're stealing property. These are the things that we have zero tolerance for. And then, of course, the major events. If you find yourself in one of these, it's time immediately to get yourself some help. Nobody's going to be punitive if nothing's happened and you're just having these ideations. Get yourself some help. We'll talk about that later, but it's up to you to tie your boots a little tighter, pull a hairnet, have the self-confidence to go in and say, okay, this is me, something's going wrong, I need to get some help. I guarantee your company's going to reach out and they want to help you, not hurt you. A little bit more examples of how that happens. Typical situations. Talked a little bit with Todd and I, thank you Todd, about how that happens. But I'm guessing, because I've been working a couple of years, that you recognize some of these situations that happen every day. One of my favorite is incompatible management styles. And this is where I call out the supervisors. Please don't raise your hand. I don't want to call you out by name or anything like that. As a supervisor, it's up to you to adjust your way of interacting with subordinates, with your coworkers, to be able to lead them, not manage them. Leadership is critical. Management anybody can do. You were chosen to be a supervisor because people believed in you, that you can be a leader. Being a leader means adjusting your style to match what other people need from you. Todd needs one thing, Matt needs a different thing. And as a supervisor, you might have to act this way and say these things in this manner for this guy, and completely 180 degrees for this gal. And it's up to you to figure that out. Warning signs. Well, is this a problem or not? In and of itself, any one of these, not a big deal. Isolate. Everybody has a bad day. My dog puked in my shoes this morning. I'm bound to come to work with a poor attitude. I don't like when my dog pukes in my shoes. I don't want to be at work today. I know I'm going to have a mess when I get home. So I'm a little testy. And I might say things that I'm not proud of. It's happened to all of us. Not a big deal. Perhaps not something that even needs to be addressed with each coworker. But when that happens every single day, when you're afraid to talk to Tom because Tom will blow up and immediately start cursing, using profanity at you at the top of his lungs, start throwing stuff at you, Tom's got an issue because it's repetitive, multiple categories on an ongoing basis. Now that's the time when you're going to reach out and get some help. Going to consult with other people. Maybe just coworkers at first, like, hey, it's been 3 days, like Tom's been angry. That's the time when you start seeing this stuff as a pattern. So what do? Start making connections. I call it connections. You're including others. You're consulting with your coworkers, with a supervisor, with HR, with the other hotlines, with EAP. You don't necessarily have to have a problem related to you when you call EAP. You could call them and say, hey, Joe's been really weird. He won't make eye contact with anybody. He's been kicking stuff, muttering, I hate this place. I wish it would burn down. Not sure what to do. I don't want to report him to HR. I don't want to get him in trouble. He's a nice guy normally. But for weeks, it's been an issue. Nobody can work with him. What do I do? Bringing in others, asking questions. Sometimes, hey man, what's been going on? Like, this isn't you. That simple connection of reaching out and recognizing that someone's in pain pulls them away from the dark side. It keeps them from going down that path. Instead of feeling isolated, they're connected. The connection is what makes the difference between becoming resentful and angry and hateful and ultimately violent. And that's up to each one of you, because you all know each one a lot more than anybody else will. 1/3 of your life is spent here. Sometimes people know their coworkers better than their spouse. It's weird. If you're one of the bully leaders, instead of being a bully, be supportive, be the positive leader, be the change agent. Be the guy that said, hey, we'll get him next time. It didn't go so good, but we got it. Let me help you with that. Hey, I found a way to get that spooled off in half the time and still be OSHA compliant. Very important. Yeah, I'm upset because my dog puked in my shoes this morning. Matt's like, dude, so? It's important to me. Like, that's gross. I can't, like, you know, I don't even like, I towel the dog off when it comes inside from the winter because I don't want the water and muck and mud in the house. Whatever your problem is, it might not seem important to you, but to that person, it's very important. This lady right here, she sees these 3 people talking. She's probably assuming it's about her. Somebody happened to glance over. She's thinking they're talking about me. Probably talking about how bad the Brewers suck. But in her mind, that's incredibly important. And as a group of people, it's important that you make that connection, bring people in. Accepting your differences and handling your disagreements are huge. I want to ask if anybody's ever seen or been in a bar fight, but I'm not going to. But you can picture how a bar fight happens, right? Well, I hate you. You're drinking light beer. That's terrible. I like light beer. Oh! And then all of a sudden it becomes not about drinking beer, it becomes about what he said or what I said to him. The ability to handle that disagreement and stay focused on what is the disagreement is huge no matter what somebody says. If you can't work it out between yourselves, and there's a ton of working it out, and I'll show you in a slide here. There's a ton of working that out individually, but don't be afraid also to get a mediator. Like, hey, well, all right, let's figure this out. Let's grab the supervisor. Let's grab a coworker, somebody that's an ambassador. I call them workplace ambassadors. somebody that everybody gets along with, that seems to get along with everybody else. You bring them on board and you say, all right, I want to do it this way, he wants to do it this way. What's your thoughts? What are you thinking? Now that puts that person in a spot, right? A lot of people don't want to be there. But as supervisors, as HR people, that's what you signed up for. That's the fun of the job. Retaliation, not acceptable, ever. Everybody can have disagreements. You will have disagreements. Even the Unabomber that lived 10 miles from the nearest person seemed to drum up disagreements with people. Some of you young people might not know who the Unabomber is, but he was an evil soul. You're gonna have disagreements. Accept that. Accept a positive way to handle them without harboring anger and resentment towards your coworker. A concept I call sidestepping, but first perception versus reality. Okay, so for the last 13 years, I've been picking on Todd because I'm a jerk and I'm a bully leader. And I think it's funny. And the three guys standing next to me think it's funny. But Todd is no longer entertained. Todd has complained to Human Resources. And HR has done a great job. They pulled me in. They gave me a speech. They made me listen to that cop that gave that talk that one day again. Oh, it was horrible. I signed some paperwork. I got a day off. I agreed that I would refrain from making any stupid jokes about colors of t-shirts. 8 different things have happened. What does Todd get to find out about what happened with me and how I'm going to be a better person? 0. So what's Todd's perception? Nothing happened, right? I want to ask, has anybody ever said that before? I've said it on a multitude of occasions. I'm not going to bother because nothing will happen. They like him. He can get away with murder and nothing will happen. I know you've heard it, said it. Don't give in to that temptation. If you give in to that temptation, you're throwing it away. You're throwing away a good, positive workplace. Doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to get into trouble. Not doing it necessarily for punitive. I need to learn how to interact with people a little bit better. Think of it in a positive way. If you're not comfortable going to me yourself and saying, look, I think Todd's had about enough, man. Not that it's not funny, I like it, but it's a little too much. It's over the top. I used to have an agreement, me personally, with a coworker because I am the king of inappropriate humor. You can imagine. When he went like this, that was it. I needed to recognize that and shut my mouth. And it worked good for years. We were partners. We worked all the time together. Perception versus reality, just know that your company will stand behind you. They will not allow retaliation. They will not allow people to harass, intimidate you, make unwanted comments for years and years. So, options. What happens when you've had these feelings like, I can't stand it anymore, it's terrible, I don't feel like I'm getting anything out of HR, I don't want to go to my immediate supervisor. My immediate supervisor is the problem. Can't stand the guy. I call it sidestepping. You're not stuck. You can do several things. EAP, you can go to the above that person's supervisor. And Joe has told me he's okay in certain situations. If you feel it's important or necessary to come right to him, he will listen to you. Restraining orders. If things are happening inside, outside of work, you can always get a restraining order. You don't have to go through work at all. You can consult with the police. We don't have to make a report. You call up, talk to any one of us. We're open 24/7. Hey, this stuff is happening. Guys sticking shivs in my tires. Guys breaking in my car. They're putting talcum powder in the air vents or the little punch outs from paper, the 3-ring punch binders. If those things are happening on a regular basis that are causing harm, it's okay to consult with officers. And of course, EAP, but if it's too much, I'm not getting along, I'm not being well in this place, and I don't see any end. This environment is not for me. I've had that in my career. You can always move on. You can always move on. Hey, and this economy is great. It's a good time if you're thinking about it. Nobody wants to. You shouldn't have to. But if it's that bad and you're that miserable, it's okay to consider that. Talked some already about handling confrontations. Listening is huge. You're all adults. Not going to go through each one of these. But verbal judo, some people may have never heard the term before. It's something that cops get training on. It's deflecting the insults. Todd, it's your turn to insult me. Give it to me.
You didn't miss breakfast today, did you?
Oh, I appreciate your sentiment. However, I still have to give this presentation today. Taking that insult that's irrelevant, that doesn't matter to the point at hand, you're disagreeing about something, probably something at work. Ignoring it, acknowledging it, and ignoring it, and then moving on. It's really hard sometimes. I appreciate that, but we still got to get this spool done. We've got to get this pallet moved. And we got to get this pallet moved before we can paint the walls. Verbal judo. Attitude and body language, huge, huge, huge. 80-90% of communication is body language. Have you ever in your life, think back, had a successful conversation with somebody pointing a finger at you? Be willing to bet not. Somebody's got their fists up, face crinkled up, breathing hard, talking so loud, shouting that the spittle is coming out. They're not in a position to see reason. They're not in a position to talk about the merits of this or that. They're ready for a fight. And at that point, stepping back, gaining some distance, giving the open stance of body language. Okay, let's talk about this in a few minutes. Those things can be critical to saving your job, saving your freedom, and not just at work, but in the bar and in your home life. If you find yourself arguing with your spouse, whoo, emotions get hot. We have like 500 calls a year, domestic calls. It happens a lot. And one of my personal favorites is avoiding triggers. Don't find out what makes somebody angry and then pick on it, stir them up, and then walk away giggling. That's not okay. Don't dredge stuff up from 10 years ago in the midst of a disagreement and throw it back in their face. It's childish. I promised to talk a little bit about your policy and incorporate it into the slideshow a little bit. You have a great policy. It's very easy to read. I just made it even more easier to read. Zero tolerance. It's a tough thing for zero tolerance. What exactly constitutes something that's a zero tolerance that's going to get you fired? One of those moderate to major things. If you start threatening to blow the place up, if you drive a truck through the facility, drive a motorcycle through the facility, if you see the news, good chance you're not going to see your coworkers anymore. Retaliation is also zero tolerance. EAP on the left, there's an 800 number, they have email, and they even have an app. Is there anything on this planet that doesn't have an app? It's amazing. I don't know how involved the app is, but you can have the app right on your phone. And then there's the anonymous hotline. And this is one of my favorite things. The corporate has a whistleblowers hotline, and they make the number in 3-point font. So I'm sure you can all see that, but I am assured in all seriousness that it is posted in various places around the plant, and it's online, so it's easy to find. I looked. That you can use for anything serious. You can use it for things that are ongoing, that you just don't feel comfortable talking to anybody about, that information that you want it to get back to people here at the plant, but you don't necessarily want to step forward and say, yeah, I see some issues here. You might not even be involved in it. Like, I got no involvement in it, but somebody should work on this. Somebody should know about this. All of those things are qualifying for the anonymous hotline. Whether it's unsafe things going on, criminal things going on, whatever it might be. If you're just not comfortable coming forward personally, it's there for you. In summary, all of us have called this the golden rule: kindness, dignity, respect, treating each other like you want to be treated. From elementary grade school to middle school to high school to the workplace. Acting appropriately with each other. Seeing something, saying something. If you see something going on and you just sit there idle, then you're giving it your approval. You're making it okay for people to act like that, to treat other people like that. And most importantly, when you see that, would you want your child or your spouse to be treated like that? When your spouse comes home and you guys are talking and he or she says, you know, man, this craziness happened at work today. I'm so tired of Matt and Todd and Julie and Mike and Tom, and you know, they're doing these things and it's just crazy. And what's your first response? You should tell somebody. You should do something about that. You don't have to put up with that. But then when we go to work, we see the same things happening and we don't tell anybody. We put up with it, which is giving our approval. I'm not the fun police. I don't expect anybody else to be the fun police. Having a good time, enjoying your time at work, makes you way more productive than walking around like robots. I can't make a joke. That's against policy. I might offend somebody. Please offend somebody. If you're offended, don't be afraid to say, that was offensive, dude. Didn't find it funny, man. It's up to that person to say, oh, sorry. I'll try the next person. Dude, you need to grow up, man. Look for those warning signs. Look for those patterns of behavior. When you see them, bring it forward. Don't sit there idly. Thoughts, questions, something I said I was going to follow up on and didn't. Do you guys recognize here in some of the stuff that I'm talking about? Yeah, a lot of head nods. It's not just here. It is everywhere. Every workplace, police departments, factories, mills, doctors' offices, they have it the worst, I think. Hospitals. Oh. Tough places. Banks, doesn't matter where you work. This stuff cuts across every workplace. But you guys being on the front line hopefully have a little bit of, and again, I apologize, ammunition to go forward to stop that terrible thing from happening. It's each and every day. And those little steps, stopping it when it's minor, stopping it when it's just starting, making those connections is what it's going to take to avoid those tragedies that we talked about at first. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Olson. Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. And you know, the whistleblower hotline is on our communication monitors right now. It's posted all the time, and I just walked by it on the way here. That shows it, and it's in big font, so you can see that number, and it's readily available. But yeah, as we said, open door policy, and I hope you all got something out of this today, because I certainly did. Thank you. Thank you.